I'm going to break down Sigma's entire kit in this quick guide and explain how to use it to be the most effective tank possible and win more games as a result. I'm Recidation, a tank main in Overwatch 2, and if this guide helps you, let me know in the comments, so enjoy, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more guides. Sigma is a very versatile tank, equipped with range, execute potential, crowd control, maneuverable cover, and self-peel. Sigma can create space like a tank, cover his team like a support, while dealing the damage of a DPS. Alright, first up are his auto attacks, Hyperspheres. Sigma's Hyperspheres are two floating orbs that orbit around him and can be used to deal damage to enemies. Hyperspheres deal area of effect damage and can be used to hit multiple enemies at once, making them great for crowd control. They also have pretty solid range before they explode at a max range. These attacks can ricochet off of the ground, walls, payload, push bot, or pretty much any other piece of environment that you can think of. Personally, I think it's kind of difficult to hit enemies accurately from mid-range because unless you can land the spheres directly, using ricochets, especially off the ground, can be tricky. Preferably, you want to land these auto attacks from your max range where the spheres will explode for area of effect damage. Or if you get right in the enemy's face, you can hit the attacks directly or make short distance ricochets off the ground. Keep in mind that if you're holding a corner, bouncing attacks off a wall can help you land effective damage while potentially remaining out of enemy sight completely. That's one thing that sets Sigma's basic attacks apart from every other character. You don't have to see the enemy to deal damage to them with your basic attacks. Sigma's auto attacks are an incredible form of damage, and using just two sets of autos can kill pretty much every support and most of the lower health pool DPS characters. Number 2, staying on the track of damage, his ability, your E, Accretion. Sigma's Accretion ability allows him to gather up pieces of debris and launch them at his enemies. The debris will travel in a straight line and deal damage to anyone in its path. Sigma can also use the Accretion ability to launch himself in the air and gain a higher vantage point. This ability is his most effective offensive tool. If used to focus an enemy support or low health pool damage character, landing a rock will deal a large amount of damage and knock over the enemy hit. Pair this with a simple auto attack while the enemy is knocked down to a standstill and you have yourself an easy pick. You can force enemy supports and DPS players to play further back if you focus them early with Accretion. Eventually they will have to swap to more effective longer range characters, which will open up the front line and give you more freedom to take space as a tank. Moving on to Sigma's main form of defense, Experimental Barrier. Sigma's Experimental Barrier is a deployable wall that can be used to block off certain areas and offer cover for his team. Sigma can place the barrier wherever he wants, and it will remain in place until it's destroyed or until you recall the shield, putting it on a brief cooldown before you can redeploy it. The Experimental Barrier is able to absorb a large amount of damage before it's destroyed, making it a great tool to hold off enemy attacks from any angle or position. Sigma's Barrier is the most versatile shield in the game because it can be placed in so many locations and actively pushed forward, giving your team room to advance in push game modes, taking space down straightaways when leaving spawn, or pushing the control point. You can pair your barrier with Kinetic Grasp. You can push an angle with your barrier where you would be the main focus of enemy fire, and once your barrier breaks, you pop Grasp, the next ability we're going to talk about, to absorb even more while your shield recharges. Moving on to Kinetic Grasp, your shift ability. Kinetic Grasp is Sigma's main defensive ability that allows him to absorb incoming projectiles and convert their energy into shields. Sigma can use this ability to protect himself and his teammates from incoming damage, making him an invaluable asset on the battlefield. He can also use the shields he generates to protect himself from direct hits, giving him an extra layer of protection. You can use Grasp to block off specific abilities that are telegraphed or have long durations. For example, Diva Rockets, Roadhog Ultimate, Bastion Turret, Torbjorn Turret, Pharah Ultimate, and Cassidy Ultimate. You can pair your Kinetic Grasp with your barrier, as stated before, but this time you would start by pushing around the corner or straight with your Grasp. Wait until your additional shield gets damaged by the enemy, then you can pop your Experimental Barrier to absorb additional incoming damage, while Grasp continues to cooldown so you can use it again. Sigma's ultimate ability is Gravitic Flux. It's his ultimate ability that allows him to lift enemies into the air and then slam them back down on the ground. This ability is great for setting up combo attacks with his teammates and can be used to turn the tide of battle in a single moment. It's best to ult for quantity when you catch the enemy team bunched up. Keep in mind that you can use your Hypersphere auto attacks while the enemies are suspended in the air. Usually supports can be comboed during your ultimate. Hitting both spheres followed by the slam down of the ultimate will kill any support. You can also use your ultimate to single out an enemy who's especially being a problem for your team. If you communicate effectively, you can warn your team that you're about to ult someone specific, leaving the enemies defenseless in the air and very easy to focus down. Sigma can control the front lines with two forms of defenses, either using both barrier and flux for himself in order to play with an in-your-face strategy, or using barrier on a perch where your teammates are set up and using environmental cover and flux for self-peel. This causes the enemy team to fight on two fronts, taking pressure off of either yourself or your teammates to land damage under less focus than usual. Good Sigma players make sure that a fight is never fair. 4 out of 5 enemies are easily comboed. You just need to find out which of those 4 players position the worst or are playing a hero with limited forms of escape. Whoever you choose will become a victim of your accretion for the rest of the game. Rock plus 1 set of auto attacks is an execute every time. You should be fighting 5v4s very often. Finally, ulting for quantity or combos create ace opportunity. If you can't catch all 5, try to make sure that your ult at least lands on both supports and the fight will be won regardless. Word for word, bar for bar, having high accuracy with Sigma auto attacks is more rewarding than any other tank in the game. When it comes to dueling the enemy tank, I believe that landing all of your autos can outdamage most forms of healing. If you cause the enemy tank to need enough healing to stop you from dueling them, enemy DPS players will be left to fend for themselves, and they will provide less pressure and overall damage for their team. Using Flux to eat big time ultimates and high value projectiles is so deflating for enemy players to put up with. It feels like they're being silenced or having their abilities cancelled. Only it's worse because you just gain half of your health pool in an additional shield and can create even more space because of it. This causes you to be less of a focus of enemy fire. But Sigma deals way too much damage to be ignored. This is a lose-lose for your opponents. Sigma is definitely S tier right now along with Ramattra and Orisa. In metas where one-dimensional pressure tanks like Winston and D.Va are not as popular, these tanks become popular because of how much damage output they have while also being a stronghold in the front line. That's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this guide and will use the information to win games, increase your rank, and make you a better Sigma player and hopefully a better tank overall. Let me know what hero you want to see a guide on next, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Yeah, wipe me down. Yeah, hey.
Shut up, Savage.
It's jigs on the beat and I'm rolling now. I ain't got no time, so I hit the town. Cartier shades on my lenses now. Feel like you cheated, he asking how. Run through the cheddar, my girl is a setter. My daddy, he caught me that Volkswagen Jetta, so I can go stack me some ends and live better. Declined all her calls, so she sent me a letter. I gotta go.